All right, y'all. So let me write number 1 down. I'll work it and then we'll come put our answers in. So they want to determine if the given point is a solution. So they're giving us -1, -13. And then the equation is y equals 4x minus 9. So on this question, we got to plug in for the x and the y and see if we get a true statement. So remember, ordered pairs, the first number is the x, second number is the y. So I'm going to plug them in. So -13 goes in for the y. That's going to equal 4 times my x, which is -1, minus 9. So y'all, left side's going to stay -13. Over here, we got to multiply first and then subtract. So multiplying 4 times -1 gives me -4 minus 9. So y'all bring the left side down again. -4 minus 9 does equal -13. So this is a true statement. So yes, -1, -13 is a solution to this equation. So y'all, let's go plug that in. So we got a yes on that. So the point -1, -13 is a solution because when -1 is put in to the x and -13 is put in for the y, the result is a true statement. All right, y'all. So that's what they wanted y'all to do on that number 1, was just see if those were a true statement when you plug them numbers in and then put it in here, okay? All right, number 2 wants me to graph the line y equals x plus 4. Y'all, let's go work that, and then we'll come find us 2 points. So remember, I'm going to find 2 points. Once I find 2 points, I'm going to go graph them. Now, at this point, they're not telling me how to graph it. So I'm just going to pick 2 x values, plug the x values in here and get me some y values. And y'all, the x's I'm going to use are 0 and 1 on this one. You can pick any 2 numbers you want. I just keep them small because the graphs are only usually 10 by 10 in MATLAB, okay? So let's put a 0 in here. 0 plus 4 is 4. So when x is 0, y is 4. And if I put a 1 in for the x, 1 plus 4 is 5. So when x is 1, y is 5. So y'all, these 2 points, 0, 4 and 1, 5, I'm going to go plot them on my graph and be done. So here we go. So click to enlarge graph. Everything we're graphing in here is a straight line. So go up here and grab the line tool and plot your first point. And I had a 0, 4. So these are going by 2. So if I go straight up, there's 2 and there's 4. So I'm going to click it on the 4. And then 1, 5, if you start in the middle, you go right 1. Now remember, these are going by 2 on these lines, okay? So in between them, I got 1, and then I'm going to go up to 5. So if you notice in the top of that little yellow banner, it's showing me that I'm at 1, 5. So I'm just going to hit enter. So now I have my line. I'm going to save that and go next. All right, y'all, let me write down number 3 here. This one has y equals 1/4 x plus 9. All right, so let me go back and share that real quick. Now, I'm still going to pick 0 for my x. Because if I put a 0 in for x, 0 times 1/4 is 0. 0 plus 9 gives me a 9. So sort of like when you do that y-intercept stuff. All right, so yeah, y'all got 9 on that one. Good job. Now, when I got a fraction, my second x value I always pick whatever that denominator is. So y'all let me plug in that 4 and I'll show you. Notice I picked a 4 because those 4s will cancel, make it a 1. So all this is 1 times 1, which is 1, plus my 9. And 1 plus 9 gives me 10. So if you don't like adding fractions and stuff, get rid of them fractions and plot some nice numbers here. So yeah, Shatia, you got both of them, so good job on that. So let's go plot them 2 points. So we're going to click to enlarge our graph. We're going to get our line tool again. So we had what, a 0, 9. So starting in the middle, 0 on the x-axis, I'm going to go up 9. All right, so there's 0, 9. I'm going to click that. And then my second point was 4, 10. So I'm going to go right 4 and up 10. So let me go right 4. So my point's showing 4, 10. So I'm going to click that. All right, y'all, we will save that. And then let's see what they got next. All right, so they want to know, is this correspondence a function? Remember, if this is a function, every number in the domain can only point to one range value. So let's look at it. The 20 only goes to the 19. The 10 only goes to the 2. The 14 only goes to the 19. Now remember, different domains can share the same range value, okay? So since each of these domain values only points to one range value each, you got to put yes on this one, that is a function. All right, y'all, we go next. They want to determine if this one's a function. Well, y'all, this one's telling me that if the domain's 9, it can go to either 3 or -3. If the domain's 4, it can go to 2 and -2. If the domain's 25, it can go to 5 or -5. So since my domains are not pointing to one range value, and if you notice, all my domains are pointing to 2 different range values. So y'all, that violates the definition of a function, and this one would be no. All right, y'all, let me write this one down and we'll work it on the pad. So this is what, number 6 here? They're giving us g of x equals 3x. They want us to find A is g of a -17. B is g of 11. And C is g of 22. All right, so we got to work this 3 times and get 3 different answers on this. So let me start with g of -17. G of -17 is just symbolism telling me that on the g of x equation, I'm going to put a -17 in for that x. So that's giving me 3 times -17. And y'all, let's see, 3 times -17. Those are unlike signs. So that's going to be a negative. And then 3 times 17 is 51. So g of -17 is going to be -51. So next we're finding g of 11. Well, g of 11 wants me to take the 3x and put 11 in for that x. So I'm going to have 3 times 11. And y'all, 3 times 11 gives us 33. And then finally, we got g of 22. So notice, the g of 22, g of 11, and g of negative 17, it's just symbolism telling us what we're putting in for the x. So this one wants me to put a 22 in for that x. So I'm going to have 3 times 22. And y'all, 3 times 22 gives us 66. So you're just plugging the 3 numbers in for the x, multiply, get your answer, and be done. So let's see. I think they just want us to put in our 3 answers here. So negative 17, we got a negative 51. For 11, we got 33. And then when G had an X of 22, we got 66. All right, then we hit next. All right, let me make this graph a little bigger. This one is one of the tricky problems. First, they want to know what is f of 3. Well, I'm going to go find 3 on my x-axis. So follow my cursor. I'm going over here. I'm going to find 3 on the x-axis, and I'm going to go straight up and touch that line. So when x is 3, f of 3 means, well, what's the y value when x is 3? So y'all, can you see what that y value is when x is 3? And I hit that line. That y value, if you go left on the line, is at a positive 2. So in the blank, we would put 2 for that part, okay? Now, it wants to know the domain. The domain starts at the smallest x value, and it will end at the highest x value. So y'all, I'm looking at the left side of my line where the first open dot is. That open dot is at 0 on the x-axis. So if I go out to the right and see where my line ends, that second open hole has an x value of 6. So I'm looking at one of these that is in between a 0 and a 6. And y'all look at B. B says x such that 0 less than x is less than 6. So that's my 2 numbers. So I'm going to hit B. All right, now be careful on this next one. It wants to know any x values such that f of x equals 2. So what they mean by that, they want me to find the x value that has a y value of 2. Remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So they're asking us what x value has a y value of 2. So y'all, I'm going to go find 2 on the y-axis this time and head straight right until I hit the line. So I'm hitting the line there. I'm going to go straight down and look at that x value. And if you go straight down to the x-axis, that x value is 3. So y'all, we would pick 3 on that one. And y'all, I'll tell you the truth. You'll never pick A on this one. That means there's no solution. Okay? Or an empty set. Well, we got a line, so we got to have some kind of answers for this, okay? Now, then it wants the range. The range goes from the smallest y value to the highest y value. So the first dot on the bottom has a y value of 0 since it's in that center. And then if I go up the y-axis to the point where my line stops going uphill, it looks like that second point has a y value of 4. So we're in between 0 and 4 on this one. So if you look over here, I'm going to go with A because it tells me my Y such that 0 is less than my Y, which is less than 4. So that one was just mainly using that graph to answer them 4 questions, okay? So then we hit next. All right, y'all, I'm going to write this one down. This wants me to find the domain of f of x equals 6 divided by x minus 7. All righty. Now I'm going to tell you the truth on this one. You've only got one x in the bottom of this fraction. So there can only be one number we're kicking out. We can't kick out 2 numbers because we only have one x down there, okay? So let's work this and see what number we're kicking out. So when we found a domain, what we did, we're only concerned with the bottom of the fraction. The bottom of the fraction cannot equal 0 because it makes it undefined. So what we do is we take that x minus 7 and we set it equal to 0 and we find what number that comes up with. Once I get that number, I'm going to exclude it from our domain. And y'all, you're solving this for the x. All we got to do here is add 7. And we get x equals 7. So since I got a 7, if you put 7 in for that x, 7 minus 7 is 0, makes it undefined. So we want the one domain that kicks out that positive 7. So we would go back to MathLab and look at them 4 answers they gave us. So number 1, for A, they're kicking out 2 numbers. They're kicking out 7 and 0. For B, they're kicking out 0. For C, they're saying it's all real numbers. But y'all, the only way it can be all real numbers is if there's no fractions at this point. And then look at D. X is a real number and X cannot equal 7, which was the only number we kicked out of our domain. So we would pick D and go next. All right, y'all, this one ain't bad. Because remember, that f of x is like a y. So this is really saying y equals negative 6x minus 4. So this is already in our slope-intercept form of a line. So remember, let me find my cursor. The slope is going to be whatever number is in front of your x. And y'all, the number in front of my x is a negative 6. So that means my slope will be the negative 6. The y-intercept, and they give you the 0 already on this. All you got to do is put in the number. And remember, the y-intercept is the b part of that formula, which is the negative 4. So remember, this is the mx plus b stuff. Negative 4 is my y-intercept, so I would come down here, put negative 4 into that parentheses. And y'all, that's it on that. And so we like it when they're already solved, okay? And we hit next. Now, y'all, this one I'm actually going to write down for this number 10. Because for number 10, they're giving me 5x equals 4y plus 4. So for me to get the slope and y-intercept on this one, I got to solve it for the y. So y'all, let's go solve that thing for the y. Now, since my y is on the right side, I'm going to move everything to the other side, okay? So first, I'm going to move the 4 by subtracting 4. That's going to give me 5x minus 4 equals my 4y. But now I want the 4y to be a 1y. So we got to divide everybody by that 4. So notice, multiplying and dividing happens to everybody. So y'all, we got a 5/4 x. I can't do nothing with that. So I'm going to leave that at 5/4 x minus 4 divided by 4 is 1. Over here, these 4's cancel, giving me a 1y. Now, if you want to, change the sides. Put the y over here. If I put the y over here, then the 5 over 4x minus 1 can go on that side. So if you don't like them being backwards, just flip sides with them. So my m is my slope. My slope's in front of that x. So my slope is going to be the 5/4. My y-intercept is going to be 0, comma, whatever number's at the end. And that is a -1. So in MATLAB, we got to put 5/4, and then we got to put in our -1 on that y-intercept. So y'all just be careful. That number 9 I did, it was already worked out. Number 10, you have to solve it for the y, okay? All righty, let me put that in. So my slope was 5/4, so that'll be 5 divided by 4. My y-intercept I came up with was a 0, -1. So y'all, you're going to put that in and hit next. All right, so I'm going to make this one bigger so that y'all can see the 2 points on here. So I'm finding the slope. So what's this, number 11? So to find the slope, I need to know what them 2 points are on here. So I'm going to go to the first point on the left side. That is sitting at that 4 on that y-axis. That point has an x value of 0 and a y value of 4. So that'll be 0, 4 for my first point. My second point down here at the bottom of the line on the right, that point has the x value of 3. And it has a y value, let me see, if I go left, that is at -7. Now y'all watch this. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. Now remember, that line's going downhill, so that slope has to be negative. So watch what I do. I'm going to start at the 4 on the y-axis, and I'm going to go down until I get to the same point where that second point is at. So I'm going to go straight down. Since I'm going down, my numbers will be negative. So I'm going down 1, going down 2, going down 3, going down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I went down 11, so that means the top of my slope will be -11. Now I'm going to get the bottom number of the slope by going right. So I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3 times. So that gives me a -11/3. Now, if you don't like that method, but remember, when you do that method, you either go straight up or straight down first. If you went up, you'd be positive. But remember, if you go down, you're going down negative. Now, let's see if we get the same thing doing this by the slope formula. So we got -11/3 when we counted down and right. So these points, remember, the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The first point gives you x1 and y1. The second point gives you x2 and y2. So y'all notice, y2 is -7 minus my y1 is 4. On the bottom, x2 is 3 minus my x1, which was 0. And y'all look at that. -7 minus 4 is -11. That's what I needed on top. And then 3 minus 0 is 3 on the bottom. So notice, when I counted down and right, I got -11/3. When I used my slope formula, I got -11/3. So any method you like, Do that on that number 11 and get that slope, okay? And remember, when a line goes downhill from the left to the right, it's got a negative slope. So y'all, I would come into here and put my negative 11 divided by 3. So my negative 11 third slope, then hit next. All right, so I'm gonna make this one bigger because it's doing the same exact thing. So I'm gonna do this both ways. So this is what, number 12. I'm gonna figure out the slope of this point on the left side. It's sitting on the y-axis at 2. So that point will be 0, 2. Now let me find this second dot over here. The second dot, if you look straight down, has an x value of 7 and a y value, if you go left, of 3. Also remember, this line's going uphill left to right, so it has to be a positive slope. So y'all watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it both ways again. If I start at the 2, I would go up 1. And then I'm level with that second point. So I went up 1. So my top number is going to be a positive 1. And then let's count right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I went 7 units right. So the bottom number is a 7. So the slope of this line is going to be 1/7. So now we're going to see if we can get that same thing if we did it by hand. So there's the 1/7 we got by counting up and over. All right, y'all. So make x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to use my slope formula again. So y'all, let's plug in. Y2 is 3 minus y1 is 2 over x2, which was 7, minus x1, which was 0. And y'all look at that. 3 minus 2 is 1. 7 minus 0 is a 7. So whether you're counting them spaces or using the slope formula, you're going to get the same thing on these every time, okay? So we got a positive slope for that number 7. So we're going to come in here and put a 1 divided by 7 and move on. Y'all, I'll tell you the truth. To me, this test is easier than doing the homework. It had a lot of, I thought the questions in the homework were sort of challenging on some of those. All right, so this one I have no choice because I don't have a graph to count. So for 13, I'm finding the slope of an 8, -4, and a 2, -8. All right, y'all, so let's go find that slope. So remember, before they gave me a picture, I could do it either way. This one, I'm sort of stuck. So I'm going to go x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're going to plug them into our slope formula. So here we go. Y2 is -8 minus, be careful here, y1 is a -4. So the reason I use parentheses on this one, so I can separate the minus sign from my negative sign, okay? Now on bottom, I got a 2 minus my x1, which is 8. So y'all, before I do anything, this double negative here, they want you to go like this. -8, double negative makes that a +4. And in the bottom, I'll just keep 2 minus 8. So the only thing I did on that step, remember, when you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. All right, y'all, let's add these now. -8 plus 4 gives you a -4 on top. 2 minus 8 gives you a -6 on the bottom. Remember, Two negatives will cancel, making this a positive answer. Now, we got a 4/6. We got to reduce that fraction. So 4/6, both of these will divide by 2. So you got to come in here and divide the top and bottom by 2 to reduce the fraction. So 4 divided by 2 gives us a 2. 6 divided by 2 gives us a 3. So y'all, our slope reduces to a 2/3. So be careful on this one, because everybody's fraction that I've seen at this point had to reduce to get that final answer. So guess what? 13, we come in and we go to A, and we're putting in a 2 divided by 3. All right, y'all. Next on the board is number 14. So let me see what we got here. 14, remember, the slope is the rise over the run. So let's see. The left side is 1 foot. So that's how tall it is. And then the bottom line is 12 feet. So they're finding the pitch of a roof. So let's go work that. And then we'll put in this answer. So when they give it to you in this form, the vertical side that's going up, that's your rise. That's going to be on top. So your slope is going to equal the rise, which is 1 divided by the run, which is your horizontal line here, and that is a 12. So on that one, you're going to have to divide that on your calculator, and it's going to give you a decimal. So you would do 1 divided by 12 on that. Y'all, if I divide 1 by 12, I get a 0.08. And then 3's going on forever. Okay. Now, let's check with MathLab and see how they want us to round this off. So if you see it down here, it says round to the nearest percent. So when they say round to the nearest percent, they don't want no decimals after my number. Y'all, 2 ways you can do this. The first way, to change from a decimal to a percent, you're going to move the decimal right 2 units. If I move right 2 units, I get a 8.333 going on forever. Now remember, they said round to the nearest percent, which will be the 8. So I need to know, y'all, on this one, if you got a 3 following an 8, would I round the 8 up to a 9, or would I keep that at 8? So you're always looking at the next digit there. And at this point, you got to remember, if it's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, I would round up. If it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, I would leave it the same. Or 3. So let me see what my chat thinks on it. So my chat thinks I would keep that at an 8, and guess what? I would definitely keep that at an 8. So good job, y'all. So that's the trick on that one. So keep it at an 8. And you don't even have to put the percent stuff in there. They've got that on this one. So just come in, put your 8, and then we move to the next problem. All right, so let me write this one down. So 15 says, find the intercepts, then graph. All right, let me write what they're giving us. They're giving us f of x equals -2 minus 2x. All right, y'all, so I'm going to work that. Once we get our intercepts, we'll come back and we'll actually graph it. Now, first thing I would do, that f of x is really a y. So I would make this y equals -2 minus 2x. And then I would set up my little table here. So remember, for my x-intercept, I'm going to find my x-intercept first. When I find my x-intercept, I set that y equal to 0. Okay? So that's why we like using the intercepts, because you use a lot of zeros. So the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0. So if I put a 0 in for that y, I'm going to have 0 equals -2 minus 2x. So I plug a 0 in for the y, and then I solve it for that x. So y'all, I need to get the -2x by itself. So to move that -2, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So we now have 2 equals, those cancel on that side, and I bring down my -2x. All right, to make that a positive 1x, we divide both sides by that -2. So 2 divided by -2 will equal -2x divided by -2. Y'all be careful here on the left side. You got a positive divided by negative. That's going to make that a -1. But on the right side, you got a -2 divided by -2. Those will cancel, making that a positive 1x. So when y is 0, our x is a -1. Then you got to come in and get the y-intercept. So to get my y-intercept, I'm going to set the x equal to 0. So here we go. That's going to give me y equals -2 minus 2 times x, which is 0. All right, bring it down to -2. Right here, if you multiply, 2 times 0 is 0. And I finally get -2 minus 0, which is a -2. So when x is 0, y was -2. So I now have 2 points. This one will be on the x-axis. This one will be on the y-axis. So y'all, let's go plot those and see what we get. All right, so I'm going to click to enlarge my graph. I'm going to click the line tool up here. My first point was -1, 0. So I'm going to go left over here to -1. The y value is 0 at that point, and click. My second point was 0, -2. So starting at 0, I would go down 2 for the y. Remember, up in the yellow banner up on the top right, it says 0, -2. So click that. We've got our 2 intercepts. Save that. And y'all, we get to go to the next one. So this one was the newer stuff we learned. When was here? Tuesday night, okay? So they want me to graph using the slope and the y-intercept. So let me click my graph here. I'm going to click my line tool. So remember, when you graph using the slope intercept, we start at the y-intercept, which is that 3 at the end. So we're going to come over here to the y-axis. Now notice these are going by 2. So I got 1, 2, 3. So I'm at 0, 3, it's showing me. So I click that. So it's sort of in between the 2 lines, okay? Now, we're at 3 on the y-axis. They want me to use the slope, which is a 10/9. That is a positive 10 on top. So starting at 3, you go up 10. So going up 10, that's going to put me at 13. And then the bottom number is a positive 9. So I'm going to go right 9. So notice I'm going 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And let's see, I need to be back down at 13. So there I am at 9:13. I would click my second dot. So remember, plot the y-intercept on the y-axis. If the slope is positive, go up according to the top number. The bottom number always goes to the right. And y'all think about this. I had a positive slope. Well, my line is going uphill from the left to the right. So that's one way I check it, to make sure my line's going uphill when I got them positive slopes, okay? So y'all, you want to save that? You just got to be careful because, you know, when they go by twos, you got to be in between those odd numbers, got to be in between those twos and fours and all that, okay? All right, y'all, next. All righty, so let me write this. New stuff we did the other night. So I got y plus 6 equals 9x. I got a 3x minus y equals negative 6. And they want to know whether these graphs will be parallel or not. All right, y'all, so let me get back up here to where I wrote my problem. So remember, we got to solve both of these for the y. If they're parallel, they will have the same slope, which means they'll have the same number in front of those x's, okay? So y'all, let's do the first line. The first line is y plus 6 equals 9x. All we got to do to get that y by itself is move that 6. And to move it, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. So here we go. That brings down my y. That cancels on the left side. All right, these are not like terms. So I'm just going to make that a 9x minus 6. So the slope, which is m, of my first line is a positive 9. So then we do the second line. The second line is 3x minus a y equals negative 6. So y'all solving that, and for the y, we got to move the 3x. And to move that 3x, we're going to subtract it. So notice what I do. Those cancel on the left side, bring down your negative y. That's going to equal, well, y'all, these aren't like terms. So I'm going to put the x first and then the number. So I get a negative 3x minus 6. Whoops. All right, so we need that to be a positive y. So since it's got a negative in the front, we divide every single part by negative 1. So notice, that makes the y positive. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 makes that a positive 3x. And then negative 6 divided by negative 1 makes that a positive 6. So our m on this one, which is the number in front of the x, is a 3. So y'all, this 9 does not equal that 3. So that means these lines are not parallel. Remember, they got to both be 9 or both be 3 for that thing to be parallel. So let's go say no to number 17. So these are not parallel. So we click no. And we go to 18. Also, 18 wants to know if these lines are perpendicular. So I got y equals 2x minus 9. And then I got 2y equals 7 minus x. So remember, if these lines are perpendicular, then the slopes have to be negative reciprocals of each other. So remember, negative reciprocals, if one's positive, the second one will be negative, and then you flip the fraction. So we're looking for this kind of pattern on these two slopes, okay? So I'm going to start with my first line. Well, look at that. The first line is already solved. Y equals 2x minus 9 is already solved here. So the m is the number in front of the x, which is a 2. So let's play with the second line. Second line, I got 2y equals 7 minus x. So y'all, let me show you what I do first. I'm going to bring down the 2y. I like to put the x's first and then the number. So I'm going to make this a negative x plus 7. That way I got my x's first and then my number, okay? And you can rearrange them as long as you keep the x negative like it was up here and the 7 positive like it was there. All right, we need to turn the 2y into a 1y. So we're going to divide everybody by 2. Now remember, since the x don't have a number here, we treat it like a 1. And then I'm going to take that 7, divide by 2. So y'all look here. That gives me a 1y like I needed. Oh, negative 1/2. I can't do nothing with that. So that's going to stay a negative 1/2 x. And then that 7/2, I don't care about it, but I can't do nothing with it either. So look at the m. Our m is a negative 1/2. So y'all, you got a slope of 2. You got a slope of negative 1/2. I'm going to ask y'all this. Are these lines perpendicular? So y'all hit my chat up. So y'all, let me ask you, since there's not a number under the 2, wouldn't we treat that like a 1 technically? So is this 2 over 1 and this negative 1/2, are they negative reciprocals? Did I change the sign and did I flip that fraction? So y'all, on this one, you're going to say, yes, these lines are perpendicular. Because look, you had a 2 here for your first slope. Remember, any number that don't have a bottom number, we treat it like a 1. So for these to be perpendicular, you got to flip it and change the sign. This one's positive. The perpendicular would be a negative. Flipping that fraction gives me a negative 1/2. Yo, that's exactly what we got there, okay? So that's what I mean by negative reciprocals. Flip it, change its sign. All right, so we would go to our question and we say yes on that one. And then we go to the next. Yo, this one wasn't bad. They want me to find an equation that has a slope of 1/2 and a y-intercept of 0, 6 over 7. So they want this to be y equals mx plus b. So they're giving us the f of x. Remember, f of x is the same thing as a y. So what we got to do is put in the right half, the mx plus b part. Your slope is 1/2. So the first thing you're going to put is that slope and then arrow out from under that and put your x. Our slope always went in front of the x. And then at the end, it would be a plus because that 6 over 7 is positive. And then that y-intercept is 6 divided by 7. So they're giving you the slope, put it in front of the x. They're giving you the y-intercept, put it after the x. All right, y'all, then we go to next. So let me write this stuff down. So, y'all, this is number 20 here. So they're giving us the m equals negative 2, and they're giving me a 0.2, 4. And they want me to find that equation of the line. And I'm going to actually go work this one out. Now, here's the thing on this one. They're giving me a slope and some point. This point is not the y-intercept. So when I got a slope and a point that's not the y-intercept, I'm going to use the point slope formula I taught y'all, which was y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. This point, that 2 is going to be x1. The 4 will be y1. So we're going to plug in for the y1, the m, and the x1. Then once we solve it for this y right here, we'll have our equation. So y'all, here we go. We got y minus y1, which was 4. That's going to equal to m, which is -2, times the parentheses x minus my x1, which was 2. So this one, you just got to plug all 3 of these numbers in for your variables. All right, y'all, so I can't do nothing on the left side yet, so I'm going to leave that y minus 4. The first thing I got to do is get rid of these parentheses by distributing my -2. So -2 times x is a -2x. That -2, ooh, excuse me. That -2 times that -2, a negative times a negative makes that a +4. Now, y'all, we got one step to get that y by itself. We got to move that -4. And to move that -4, I'm just going to add 4 to both sides. So the y comes down. That stuff cancels on the left side. Over here, the -2x comes down because the 4 I just added can only add to the other 4 because those are like terms. And y'all, 4 plus 4 is going to give us a +8. So I now have my equation. We're going to go put that into Math Lab. So they give me the y equals. So all I got to do is put in my -2x. And then I had what? A +8. And see, that's what they're saying. Type it in slope intercept form. Well, y'all, that's what we got here. So then what? Oh, that's number 20. So you just submit your quiz at that point and be done. All righty. So let me go back. I'm going to stop that share. So y'all, that's the trick on this review. Knock out your review till you get a good score. Once you get a good score, knock out that second test, okay? So remember, second test is due Sunday night by midnight. All right, y'all. And that's all the work you had this week. You had to do 2-6 and 2-7. The stuff we did Tuesday. And then you got your review and your test 2, okay? Y'all, so what I'm going to do is stop my recording.